How's it going, everybody? This is Rob of Novakast back with another 2-episode review of Death Note. I'm really excited to do this, or at least continue this particular series. And with this video, we'll be talking about episodes 15 and 16. I'm actually really excited to talk about this, so without further delay, why don't we go ahead and get started with this. So where do I begin with this particular episode? I guess, if anything, Light, at least with episode 15 anyway, Light's trying to figure out the perfect way to kill L, especially with everything going on, now that he has basically Misa and Rem cooperating with him. Though, I'm going to say, like, it's just, this whole thing, I kind of figured that this wasn't going to work. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I didn't think it was going to be that easy, like right off the bat, because in some regard, especially with everything, like Rem and Misa talking to Light about like setting it up where they were going to kill L, Misa ends up giving one of her cell phones to Light so they can communicate, and that way Light doesn't have to use his own cell phone. And what they end up doing is kind of ending their conversation, by the way, with a kiss, which I thought was hilarious. Because she's, let's face it, Misa is infatuated with Light at this point. That a single kiss, like after her kind of arguing with him about a certain situation, is immediately like, okay, he kissed me, I'm just going to go about my business. So that was interesting, to say the least. We end up having, like, going further with the episode with L meeting Light at the school. And apparently this ends up setting everything to kind of fail. Because not only that, or at least Light, L, and Misa, you know, being in the same place. By the way, yeah, because Misa shows up out of the blue after L told her specifically do not show up at random and that he would contact her. She shows up and just things go downhill from there, where apparently Misa is able to see the name of L, but unfortunately, because it's the worst time to tell Light, she can't tell him, and is dragged off by her secretary or producer, I don't know, but either way, so she's dragged off. So after making an excuse to go to the bathroom, Light then tries to call Misa, but it turns out, surprise, surprise, L assumed or suspected that Misa was the second Kira. So they apprehend her, and all I'm going to say is what they do to her is really, really fucked up, where they proceed to torture her to get information. Again, it's really, really fucked up how they have this whole setup. But anyway, they end up, and by the way, actually no, I want to continue talking about this, because it gets to the point where she literally wants to die. Like, when she finally wants to talk to them, she basically says, kill me. And even though they think that she's talking to them, she's actually talking to Rem, asking Rem to kill her. And in some sense, Rem ends up finding the alternative to some degree, where there's a way for basically Misa to possibly not give away Light. And we find out another rule about the Death Note, that apparently if you relinquish the Death Note back to the Shinigami, you will lose all memories of anything involving the Shinigami. So, in that regard, if she relinquishes the Death Note back to Rem, then that means that she would forget about Light being Kira, about the Shinigami, everything. So, to kind of ease her pain, or at least finding no alternative besides, death, she proceeds to relinquish, or give the okay to relinquish the Death Note. Rem then goes to Light, and Light kind of, in some sense, and it ends with him kind of like not knowing what to do, but basically telling Ryuk goodbye. So it makes you wonder what Light has in store. But unfortunately, it ends with, Light saying goodbye to Ryuk. Alright, episode 16, continuing with our video, is actually interesting, and actually, if anything, it really adds a twist, and kind of makes me wonder of how they're doing this, or at least how they're going to continue with this. So, we've established that by relinquishing a Death Note, that the individual who owned the Death Note will forget everything involving the Death Note or Shinigami. So, which is what happened to Misa, because at this point she's still confined. So the plan, I guess, for our characters is how to put that into use. So, in this regard, and I gotta say, it's actually really interesting how this is all set up. We have Light basically going, or at least going in front of L and the rest of the police that are, including his father, who are investigating the Kira case, and basically kind of pulls a whole I may or may not be Kira thing, and offers to have himself confined for a period of time to try to prove his innocence. And that way, they can see watch him closely and see every action that he takes. Which, honestly, it really sets us up as being something really interesting. And we get at the beginning of this, we also have Light basically talking to Ryuk, mentioning the fact that he hid the Death Note. And if anything happens, he's going to utter a particular phrase for basically Ryuk to immediately relinquish the Death Note, or him to relinquish the Death Note. And his plan, I guess, the thing he had, this whole entire plan that he set up is actually really, really good. So he's confined, Misa's confined. In fact, his father offers to be confined as well. Especially at this moment, he's a little bit peeved about what's going on, especially with them confining or taking his son captive. But eventually, after a couple weeks or a week or so, there's nobody that's killed due to Kira. So around, I think, the 2-week mark, we have Light enacting his plan, where he basically tells Ryuk, or utters the phrase for him to relinquish the Death Note. And I'm assuming at this second he forgets everything of him being Kira, everything he's done, all of it. So now, especially with him uttering the fact that he doesn't know who Kira is, what he's doing there, or at least he knows what he's doing there, but mentions he's not Kira, kind of proclaiming his innocence, being a little bit disheveled compared to his usual cool demeanor, which inevitably ends up confusing a lot of the rest of the investigators. including Elle, who at this point is confused of what's going on, especially with Light's change of tone and his action or his behavior, as well as the situation with Misa, not knowing what to go next, especially since around the 2-week mark they start having more basically more deaths from quote-unquote Kira, which I'm kind of wondering how they set that up. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if Kira, or at least Light, basically signed a couple people's names beforehand, but we shall see. Either way, this is really interesting so far. And the episode ends with basically Elle not knowing what to do or what the hell's going on, which makes me wonder what was the true, like, the full plan, and if we're going to get to see that. But who knows, because that basically is how the episode ends, with Elle, like, not knowing what's going on. So, all in all, I enjoyed these episodes. We get to learn more about the Death Note and the whole relinquishing of the Death Note rule, which I thought was kind of interesting. So, and it actually got me thinking, so there is a way for people, or at least, people who have a Death Note, to not be killed by it. And that is, basically relinquishing it to back to the Shinigami. So, yeah, that was interesting detail. And it seems like they put that into good use, or at least as far as we are seeing at this second. So, all in all, I'm looking forward to continuing this whole series. With that, I think that's all I have to say about these 2 episodes. Please continue following us in more content. Next video, we'll be talking about episodes 17 and 18. Really looking forward to talking more about that. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Novakast signing off. Have a good one, and take care. Peace.
2, 3, 5.